a forbidden connection. When my father remarried, everything in my world changed. I was just a teenager trying to figure out who I was in a world that felt like it was constantly shifting beneath my feet. But when my stepmother came into our lives, everything felt wrong, and yet, strangely, something about it also felt right. I could never explain the mix of emotions that twisted within me every time I looked at her. Was it just the jealousy of having another woman take my mother's place, or was it something deeper? Something that I wasn't brave enough to admit to myself. It started with the little things. My dad, ever the doting husband, would shower my stepmother with affection, always doing his best to make her feel at home. At first, it seemed normal. I wasn't thrilled, but I didn't say anything. She was always so kind to me, trying to make me feel included, asking about my day, and bringing me small gifts. I wanted to like her. I really did. But it didn't take long before I realized there was something more to her gestures than simple kindness. There was an intensity in her gaze that lingered just a second too long, a slight brush of her hand against mine that made my heart race for reasons I couldn't understand. It was impossible to ignore. She would always find a way to be close to me, whether it was sitting beside me on the couch during movie nights or offering to help me with schoolwork when I didn't need it. I didn't know if it was her natural warmth or if there was something deeper, something hidden, but I couldn't escape the feeling that I was becoming the object of her attention in ways I wasn't ready for. The more I tried to push the thoughts aside, the stronger they became. My father, oblivious to the undercurrent between us, continued to praise her, happy that his new wife seemed to blend into our family. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just trying to fit in, she was trying to get closer. I would catch her staring at me when she thought I wasn't looking, and I could feel my pulse quicken each time. Then came the night that everything changed. My father had gone out of town for a weekend trip, leaving just the two of us in the house. At first, everything felt normal, but as the hours passed, an undeniable tension began to fill the air. She had always been gentle, but tonight there was a different energy about her. It was electric, and I couldn't stop myself from responding to it. We were sitting in the living room, watching a late-night show. It was just supposed to be a quiet evening, but something about the dim light and the soft music made everything feel intimate, too intimate. Out of nowhere, she leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're so much like your father, you know." Her words should have felt innocent, but they didn't. They sent a shiver down my spine. I looked at her, trying to make sense of the moment, but her eyes held something I couldn't understand, a longing, a desire that didn't belong. "Why do you always look at me like that?" I asked before I could stop myself. My voice was trembling, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. But there was no going back now. The words were out, and her eyes seemed to brighten at the question. Her smile was small, almost secretive, as she leaned in closer. "Because I know you," she said softly. "I know you better than anyone else, and I think you know me too." My heart was racing now, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to push her away, but at the same time, I couldn't move. Her proximity, the heat of her body, was making everything around me blur. Before I knew what was happening, her lips brushed against mine. It wasn't a full kiss, but it was enough to leave me breathless, disoriented, unsure of what was real and what was fantasy. It felt like everything I had ever known was crumbling away, replaced by something darker, more forbidden. I pulled back, my mind spinning. "What are you doing?" The words came out as a choked whisper, filled with confusion and fear. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just watched me, her expression unreadable. "I don't know," she murmured, "but I can't stop thinking about you." Her confession hung in the air like a secret, heavy with unspoken promises. I could feel my body reacting to her words, to the way she looked at me, to the way she made me feel in ways I shouldn't have been feeling. I didn't know how to process what was happening. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was trapped in this moment, in this feeling, in her. I didn't know if I was losing my mind or if she had somehow bewitched me, but I couldn't escape it. The rest of that night passed in a haze. We barely spoke, but the tension between us was palpable. The next morning, my father returned, and everything seemed normal again. She was back to being the perfect stepmother, smiling, kind, distant. But I knew something had changed. We both knew something had changed. In the days that followed, I tried to convince myself that it was a mistake, that it was just a moment of weakness. But every time I saw her, every time she looked at me, I couldn't ignore the pull between us. I didn't know if she felt guilty or if she even cared, but I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, this was something more than I had ever imagined. It wasn't long before the secret became impossible to keep. The more I tried to push her away, the stronger my feelings became. And every time I thought about it, I realized that I didn't know how to stop. I was caught in a web of desire, of confusion, of a love that shouldn't have existed. And as much as I hated it, I knew that I wasn't the only one tangled in that web. But how could I ever tell anyone? How could I explain the love I felt for the one person I should never have felt it for? How could I tell my father, the man who trusted her with his heart, that his wife had become my obsession? The weight of the secret grew heavier every day. It was a love that could never be spoken, a love that could never be acknowledged. But it was there, undeniable, buried deep within me. I had no idea what would happen next. Would we continue to pretend that everything was normal, or would this dangerous game finally explode into something more? All I knew was that I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. But it was a secret love, a forbidden love, and one that would haunt me for as long as I lived. The growing tension. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between us grew unbearable. Every time I saw her, I could feel the weight of what had happened, even though we never spoke of it. It was as if we were both trapped in a silent agreement, an understanding that we would pretend it never occurred. But beneath the surface, things were different. The look in her eyes when she caught mine told me that she felt it too, that the spark we shared hadn't faded. It was always there, just beneath the surface, waiting to ignite. I couldn't focus on school, couldn't pay attention to anything except the memory of that night, the feel of her lips on mine, the soft whisper of her breath in the dark. It was like a fire that burned inside me, one that I couldn't put out. My mind would wander, imagining what would happen if we gave in to whatever this was. But every time I thought about crossing that line again, fear gripped me. What if it destroyed everything? What if it destroyed my relationship with my father? What if I lost her completely, or worse, lost myself? And yet, there were moments when I couldn't help myself. I would catch her looking at me in the kitchen, her gaze lingering just a little too long. She would smile that soft, knowing smile, and it was like she was daring me to take the next step. I wasn't sure if she wanted me to make a move or if she was waiting for me to back away, but I couldn't ignore the pull, the connection between us. Every moment felt like a game, a dangerous one I couldn't stop playing. One evening, as the sun began to set and the house grew quiet, I found myself alone in the living room with her again. My father had gone out with friends, and it was just the two of us. She was sitting at the edge of the couch, reading a book, but I could feel the air between us thickening. There was a restlessness in her posture, a tension in the way she gripped the pages of the book. I could sense that something was about to happen, something we couldn't stop. "I never meant for this to happen," she said suddenly, her voice low and barely audible. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in her gaze, something raw and exposed. "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart thumping in my chest. I didn't know if I wanted to hear the answer, but I couldn't stop myself from asking. She sighed, setting the book down on the table beside her. "This, whatever this is between us, it wasn't supposed to happen. But I can't pretend anymore. I can't just act like I don't feel it." The honesty in her words left me breathless. "What do you feel?" I whispered, leaning a little closer without meaning to. "I feel like I'm losing control," she said, her voice trembling. "Like I'm falling into something I shouldn't be." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to run, to get away from this whole mess. But another part of me, the part that had been captivated by her from the very beginning, couldn't resist the urge to stay. I wanted to know what she meant, what this was. But more than that, I wanted to know what I meant to her. Before I could speak, she stood up, walking towards me. The air seemed to shift, becoming heavier with each step she took. She stopped just in front of me, her eyes searching mine, looking for something, an answer, maybe, or just a sign that I felt the same. And before I could think, before I could stop myself, I reached out and touched her arm. The moment my fingers made contact, it felt like the world around us stopped. Everything was quiet, still. I looked at her, my breath shallow, my heart pounding, and in that moment, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. She didn't pull away. Instead, she stepped closer, her body close enough to mine that I could feel the heat radiating from her. She raised her hand to my cheek, her touch gentle but insistent. I closed my eyes, leaning into her touch, unable to resist. Her lips brushed against my ear as she whispered, "I can't stay away from you anymore." That was all it took. I didn't question it. I didn't think about the consequences. I just let the feeling take over. My hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, and then, finally, our lips met again. This time it wasn't a hesitant kiss, it was desperate, full of need and longing, the kind of kiss that promised things we couldn't take back. For a moment, everything disappeared. There was no father, no stepmother, no family. There was just the two of us, caught in this impossible web. I could feel the tremble in her hands, the way her body reacted to mine, and in that moment, I knew she was feeling the same thing I was, the way our hearts seemed to beat in sync, the way our worlds had collided in a way that could never be undone. But even as I lost myself in the kiss, the weight of what we were doing settled in. This was wrong, so wrong, and yet I couldn't bring myself to stop. I couldn't bring myself to care. The feeling was too strong, the pull too irresistible. Finally, we broke apart, gasping for air, our faces inches apart. She looked at me with wide eyes, her chest heaving. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. I wasn't sure if she meant it, or if she was just scared of what would happen next. "I don't know what we're doing," I said, my voice shaky, "but I can't stop." For a moment, we just stood there, looking at each other. The world outside our bubble seemed so far away, as though nothing existed but the two of us. But reality was closing in. We both knew that this couldn't last forever. Someone would find out. It would tear everything apart. And yet, despite the fear, despite the guilt, I knew one thing for certain. This was the most alive I had ever felt. In her arms, in her gaze, I found something I couldn't explain. I didn't know how it would all end or what the future held for us, but I knew one thing: I would never be the same again. The secret, the forbidden love we shared, was something that would haunt me forever. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more exciting, suspenseful stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Lust Stories. There's so much more to come, and I promise you won't want to miss a single moment of it.